There are probably more than a few of you who are eyeing this very bare forearm and thinking, you've got to be wearing an arm guard. And if you are new to archery and you're just learning, you probably should be wearing one of these, because string slap or getting bruised on your arm is a fairly common occurrence for people who are just starting. And while I don't advocate to learners to take arm guards off, you can very much shoot without an arm guard and never hit yourself if you do it correctly. I've made a couple of videos on why string slap happens and what causes it. I've also talked about whether or not you need an arm guard and how to hold the bow correctly so you don't hit yourself. But I'm going to approach this from a more direct question: how do you stop hitting your arm? And I'm going to do this for the benefit of not just new archers and learners, but also instructors, because the advice that is most commonly given might not make sense and could in fact make things worse. The first thing which I often see people say and people recommend or ask for is to get a bigger arm guard. That's the one that covers the entire arm. That doesn't solve the problem. You'll still hit yourself. It might not hurt as much, but you'll still hit yourself. And that's the problem that you need to solve. And the most common advice to solve that problem is to simply turn the elbow. But that small bit of advice, as easy as it is to say and repeat, is problematic for learners. As experienced archers, we don't really think about how we turn our elbows, we just do it. So when it comes to explaining and showing to somebody else how to do it, we skip the small steps in between that actually make this happen. Now, just to show this is the correct elbow alignment that will avoid getting the string onto your arm. As you can see, there's quite a bit of clearance between the string and my arm, so when I shoot, it doesn't hit my forearm or my elbow or my upper arm. And because of that, I can fairly freely shoot without worrying about the string ever hitting my arm. But what instructors sometimes forget to tell you is that you don't just turn your elbow or your arm, you must also pay attention to your bow grip. Because here's the problem I see when people are learning. They try to turn their elbow and it gets really awkward because you're trying to do all this at the same time. You're turning your shoulder over, you're trying to get your elbow locked, and it's just so hard because you end up having this weird banana style grip while you're trying to hold the bow. You're pulling your back and you're doing as much as you can to get your arm away from the string because you're told to turn your elbow. And instructors, again, you might see people who you say, hold the bow, let me help your elbow, and you turn, you're almost twisting, and they're trying to do everything they can to keep the bow steady while you're turning your elbow around. And it becomes quite a pain, both figuratively and literally, for both you and the learner. And from my experience, I think there's just way too much attention being paid to the elbow. Because you're hitting the elbow, you want to avoid hitting the elbow, so you move it out of the way. So all the attention from the learner and the instructor is focused on turning the elbow, which results in poor form elsewhere. So what do you do to actually solve the problem of hitting your arm? It all comes down to your bow grip. This is what most people do when they first hold a bow. They see nice grip shaped handle, they put the hand around it and they hold it like this. It doesn't have to be a death grip, they just hold it straight like this. And that's the problem. When you are holding the bow like this, you're going to bring the string much closer to your arm. In addition, as you pull it back, your elbow is more likely to turn inwards and make contact with the string, which is what makes you have that bruise right here, or the string might catch on your arm guard over here. But most importantly, it's really hard for many people to turn their elbows in this motion, because that's kind of not how elbows work. You put a lot of strain on your shoulder for one, trying to keep it still. A lot of people would turn their shoulder instead. But it's just so weird and contorted to turn your elbow like this. And the reason simply is you're locking your range of motion by keeping all your fingers on the bow. The solution is to keep your fingers off the bow. What we normally teach is to have this V-shaped grip. You put the bow in the meaty part of your thumb and you can lightly close it. You can use one finger or two fingers, whatever's comfortable for you. But the key is your last few fingers are off the grip. Therefore, your knuckles over here are at a 45-degree angle. Some people just hold it at 60 degrees and that's fine, but 45 degrees is a good grip. And this is what you use for modern target archery as well. When you turn your wrist out like this, you also have the consequence of turning your elbow. So it's much easier to turn your elbow by having your wrist turned this way as well. As you can see over here, if you hold it straight, it's very hard to have that range of motion for your elbow. Turn the wrist and your elbow will also turn by itself. There's not much need for really strange contortions and teaching people to lean against a wall and turn their arms outwards. While it is a habit which people grow into very quickly with archery, it doesn't need to be taught so awkwardly. So if you're having trouble visualizing how to turn your elbow, your problem may start with your bow grip. V-shape, put it on the meaty part of your thumb, close one or two fingers over it, and you have your string clearance mostly done. So once more, V-shaped grip on the handle, close a finger or two over it, and then you can freely shoot without worrying about the string coming anywhere near your arm. Couple of quick tips, no matter what method you use to grip the bow or how you change your elbow rotation, do bear in mind you want to keep your meaty part of your thumb, the base of your thumb, on the grip itself. A lot of people who twist their arms and turn their elbows end up having to grip the bow loosely like this, where it sits on the thumb. So you end up gripping it like this. That's very painful because now you're putting the pressure on the thumb itself rather than the meat of your thumb, and you end up putting pressure on your wrist as well. This is not a good way to shoot. That's going to cause wrist injuries, and while it is going to clear your forearm, that is going to hurt in the long run and it will really affect your shooting. And likewise, beware of bringing your finger too close around where you end up being way too close to it. You don't have to put your entire wrist behind it, and that will cause carve your forearm as well. So remember, base of the thumb over here is fine. And if you're doing the competitive target archery or Olympic archery in the long term, this is a good habit because if you don't grip the bow, it will freely jump out and you'll be wearing a sling to retain it, so there's less torque and pressure on the bow. So get into good habits, have this grip, put it here and gently close around it, and you will solve most of your string slap problems. Anyway, I hope that helps. For learners, it's a very easy thing which people make mistakes on, overlook and find various answers for. But for people who are giving the advice, or instructors, or people just helping teach others, we often give conflicting and confusing advice for simple problems, and the actual causes may not be as extreme as having to have elbow surgery, but more so just hold the bow differently. If you want to find out a bit more about what causes different string slaps and how to solve those problems, check out these older videos. They are fairly old by today's standards, but we've covered that content elsewhere before. Anyway, stay safe, be well, shoot straight, and hopefully we'll see you next time.